slides.
Oh, this one's not.
So we are going to call the budget meeting to order. Lisa, I know that you need to sort. Do you have the information you need? Okay. So welcome everyone to the Kansas City Public Schools budget hearing for 23-24. I'm going to turn the floor over to Ms. Erin Thompson to provide her information. Actually, I'll call on Dr. Collier to lead this report. Sorry.
All right, good evening. We're ready to begin our public budget hearing, and Ms. Thompson is at the podium. She will take us through the second portion of the budget review. I'm going to start off, so I think we're ready. So that's okay. So in the spirit of mutual responsibility and accountability, we plan to continue moving forward together. So we're kicking off tonight with our superintendent budget priorities, and there are 8 that are laid out this evening that we have focused on for next school year that you'll see reflected in our budget. The very first is, as you'll see, is teacher salary increases. I think we all know why this is important, as we are currently existing in a context where there's just a shortage of teachers and staff. And so we know it's important that teachers, staff members feel valued. They also have a livable wage so that they can take care of their own responsibilities and homes. And so we made it a priority this year in partnership with our union to look at the teacher salary and make increases that we believe will be meaningful for our staff. And so that is one of our budget priorities as we continue to look at what we're currently compensating, and in the future we'll be able to compensate our teachers. We want to make sure that they know that they are valued. We appreciate the work that they do. There's a lot on our teachers, and so we want to make sure that the compensation that we're providing reflects our appreciation and our value for the work that they do and what they provide each and every day for our students. The second priority, as you'll see there, is tied to two of our 5 big rocks, and that's around the literacy, reading, and math. And so we want to continue to make this investment to have reading, math, and academic interventionists in all of our buildings. We are still dealing with some of the residual of COVID learning loss or stagnation, however we want to phrase it. And so we want to make sure that we are providing adequate supports in our schools around reading and math. And so we're going to continue that support going into next year as well. This next one is tied to another big rock, our parent and family engagement. We know that this is an area that we have to continue to work. We believe that our parents, our families, they're the first caregiver, and we want to meaningfully partner with our families. And so we have invested in this position that started this past school year, the FACE, Family and Community Engagement Liaisons. We want to continue this with these positions. We are looking at those positions now and looking at how we can further fine-tune those so that we can make sure that those positions are making the most and best impact in our schools. That fourth is building substitutes. This is something that we found to be valuable as we returned to in-person learning last year. We saw that we needed to have building subs assigned to each school versus what we were doing in the past, which was contracting with a company, and we would call on subs when we needed them. Those folks would come into our buildings, but they weren't always necessarily familiar with schools, familiar with culture, staff, or students. And so we found that not to be the best way to go about filling those vacancies or empty seats in our buildings. We found that building substitutes were much more impactful. These people are part of the staff. They get to know the students, the staff, the culture of the building, They also have an opportunity, when necessary, to engage in curriculum so that if they're needing to step into a classroom, there's more continuity of service for our students. And so we do want to continue this. We've heard from both principals and staff members that they feel like the building substitutes have added value to our building. So we want to continue this investment as well. Here you will see the elementary instrumental music. You all heard about some of this as we were talking about our Blueprint 2030 academic visioning. And one of the elements that we want to prioritize and elevate in our school system is commitment to the arts. And so this is a step in that direction as we seek to expand elementary instrumental music for grades 4 through 6. We did have to make some tweaks here. We originally wanted to start in kindergarten. However, we're going to take baby steps in this direction, but we are continuing to move in this direction around the instrumental music in our elementary schools. And we want to make sure that we don't just have pockets of this across our system, but we want to make sure that any child that is interested in instrumental music has an opportunity to engage and then be able to continue on as they matriculate through our schools. The next is the high dosage tutoring. This also falls in line with our big rocks, the literacy and the math. High dosage tutoring is one-on-one tutoring or very small groups. And this is one of the highest leverage strategies around moving student achievement. We kicked this off this school year. We got a late start, but we look forward to, as we start next school year, beginning right away with this high dosage tutoring to address any learning loss or stagnation that we're seeing across our student body. The next is Beyond the Four Walls field trips. This is another component of the Blueprint 2030 academic vision. And this is where we believe that learning doesn't just happen within the four walls of the classroom or the school, but we believe our students need experiences to step into the world and to grapple and experience with the things that they're learning, what they're learning theoretically in class, to be able to go out into the community and further expand on those learning opportunities. And so we have outlined what those field trips will look like for students going into next school year at every grade level, guaranteeing at least 2 per grade level. It doesn't mean that they will only have 2 field trips in a given year, but they will be guaranteed at least those 2 field trips that all students in those grade levels will experience. And then finally, school safety. We know that this is a hot button topic. It is an area of interest for all of us. As we look at what's happening across the educational landscape across the country. And so we're looking internally, how do we shore up any safety or security issues that could potentially be there. And so we are looking at securing for the perimeter of our buildings, additional cameras, making sure we're updating, adding where we maybe don't have at this point where we need it for points of entry. Also looking at security systems across the district. And then we're also looking at adding security officers for our elementary schools. We're working out what that model will look like, but we want to make sure that that is something that is available in elementary schools. I know when I've been in meetings this year, one of the questions that has been reoccurring has been, can we have security officers in elementary schools? Parents have asked that. And so we are responding. We're hearing the concerns that parents and perhaps even staff may have, and so we are making that investment so that we have that layer of support there as well for all elementary buildings. So those are the 8 priorities that we're looking at for next school year. Go to the next slide. Here, what you can see are those 8 priorities that I've just talked about. You can see how each of them is aligned to our strategic plan, what goal is aligned to, as well as the strategy. So if there's questions about that, you can make sure you visit our goals and strategies page for Blueprint 2030, and you can see how it aligns. Next slide, please. So back earlier when I said that in the spirit of accountability and also transparency, one of the things that we did this year that we've not done in the past is try to expand our engagement around the budget. We know for many people the budget is something that carries a lot of mystery, and people are uncertain about what it consists of and how we came to decisions. But we want to open this process up around our budget. And so we were very intentional this year about adding some public stakeholder meetings so that more of our community had an opportunity up front to know what we were looking at for our budget, but then also in those conversations, they also had an opportunity to weigh in. So these are 5 additional meetings that we had to this meeting tonight, but there was also a social media post about the budget and opportunities for folks to weigh in. If we go to the next slide, you can see more of what that engagement told us. Every time we had an engagement session, we asked the stakeholders who were present to engage in a balancing act survey, and this is where they were able to look at the priorities that we've set forth, and were able to communicate to us what is most important or valuable to you. And so you can see here how our stakeholders ranked each of these items that are here. And I think one of the things that we looked at was the additional feedback that we received, because we realized that there are things that we believe are important as educators, and we've included that, but we also wanted to know what our stakeholders also deem important. And what we heard there is a strong interest in bilingual staff, and we share that, and then also marching bands. Those were the 2 that came forth from that process. You can see the number of folks that engaged, people that looked at the page. It was 398, but we only had 91 people to actually complete the survey. So I want to make sure I share that as well. So as you're looking at that data, that gives you some context around the number of people who responded around these 8 priorities, and then the additional priorities that were recommended.
Okay, so I'm going to go through the revenue and expenditure of the budget for our proposed budget for FY24. What impacted our revenue this year? Our local revenue makes up about 84% of our total budget for the operating budget. This year, we received our preliminary assessed valuation, and that increased by about 19.66%, but that is our preliminary assessed valuation. We won't get the final assessed valuation until September, and that's when we'll have the board set the actual tax levy at that point in time. We do an amendment to the budget if we have changes based on that final assessed valuation. Also, for the state, we'll be fully funded through the transportation formula. On the Kansas City public schools, our basic formula revenue goes through the charter schools. That's how the charter schools are funded. We get our local revenue through Jackson County, but charter schools are funded through the state. It goes directly from the state to the charter school. Now, pre-K funding, we are looking at the governor's budget, and it looks like it's about $84 million for pre-K funding. We just don't know the final on that yet. On federal, we know this is our last year for our COVID release funds. This 2023-24 will be our last year, and 25, we will no longer have those COVID federal funds. So our comprehensive revenue summary, our local revenue, we're projecting next year 200. If you go over, we're going over to the 4th, 5th columns for proposed budget 2023-24. Our revenue budget for operating $268,444,762. Our grants $697,000. Child nutritional services $469,775. For a total of $269,611,537 for our local revenue. Our county revenues $6,180,878. Our state revenue $15,517,081, and a federal revenue $78,657,292 for a total revenue budget of $369,966,788, which is an increase of $10 million. For our expenditure budget, by category, our salaries and benefits are the highest part of our budget. It's about 64% of our budget is people. For next year, the proposed budget is $166,133,155 for our salaries, and $57,118,816 for our benefits. The increase you see here is basically our raises that we have calculated as a part of this budget proposal. Purchase services is $60,771,423. Our supplies and material $29,596,298. Our capital, $26,852,584, and our debt service, $8,200,333, for a total expenditure budget proposed of $348,672,609. As you see, it is a balanced budget. Our revenues exceed our expenditures. So our remaining timeline, we have a budget presentation tonight in the board meeting tonight. We also have a tentative schedule of June 6th for a second budget workshop, and then the final, June 28th, will be the recommendation for the board approval. State statutory is June 30th that we have to have a budget voted on by the board.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson.
Questions?
At this time, I would like to receive a motion from the board to open the floor to public comment. Ms. Kendrick?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Ford? Lisa, please call the roll.
Ms. Buckner? Ms. Curls? Ms. Ford? Mr. Jackaway? Ms. Kendricks? And Ms. Cortez?
Yes. With that, individuals wishing to make a statement regarding the 2023-24 budget were asked to communicate their interest with the board secretary. Individuals will be called in the order in which they were received. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes. We welcome any additional comments from the sign-in sheet, although I understand that most of the folks on the sign-in sheet are here to speak at the general session, so we'll try to keep those from getting mixed up here. So as a result, the chair now recognizes Greg Lombardi. Mr. Lombardi, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. Very much appreciate the opportunity to speak before you tonight. First off, thank you, to speak before you and be heard. So I'm Greg Lombardi. I'm the Executive Director of the Likens Neighborhood Association, proud home of Whittier Elementary School. And on behalf of the 4,000 residents and growing of Likens, I want to say that we support the superintendent's proposals here. We think that the 8 proposals are very sound approaches. We do want to call attention to an issue in funding for this year for Whittier Elementary and make sure that it is considered in next year's funding cycle. And that is this. I mean, once you have the budget, it has to be divided by schools. So in the 2022-2023 school year, the funding for Whittier Elementary School was 30% lower on average per student than the average elementary school in the district. Whittier was funded at the level of $9,769 per student. The average school was at $12,813 per student, and Border Star was at $15,657 per student. I've got these numbers. They come from the district, and I will hand these to the secretary at the end of my testimony here. From my perspective, that's just not equitable and should be addressed. Whittier is one of the lowest income neighborhoods in the school district. It has the highest rate of non-English speaking students in the district. The school deserves to be funded at a rate that's comparable to all other elementary schools in the district. So I hope that you guys will look at that in the coming budget. And I thank you for your consideration on it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardi. Next, we have Angie Lyle. Good evening, Ms. Lyle.
Good evening. I am going to speak at the board meeting, but I also just wanted to make mention that tonight's event was supposed to have childcare and food, and so maybe a translator if needed, and I don't think that we have any of that available right now, so I just wanted to make note that this wasn't as organized as we would have liked for our parents who have come tonight. So thank you. I'm Angie Lyle with the DAC.
Thank you, Ms. Lyle. Are there any other individuals here who'd like to speak with regard to the budget hearing? Seeing no one else, thank you for your comments and interest in the 2023-24 KCPS budget. This now concludes our budget hearing, and we will adjourn to the general session. The regular meeting of the Kansas City Public Schools Board of Directors for May 24th, 2023 is hereby called to order. Lisa, please call the roll.
Ms. Buckner,
Here.
Ms. Curls,
Here.
Ms. Ford,
Here.
Mr. Jackaway,
Here.
Ms. Kendricks,
Here.
Ms. Cortez.
Here. Colleagues, we currently have an amended agenda to include the Summer School Academy as a regular business item number 10. Are there any additional proposed changes to the amended agenda for this evening? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the amended agenda as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Lisa, please call the roll.
Ms. Buckner,
Yes.
Ms. Curls,
Yes.
Ms. Ford,
Yes.
Mr. Jackaway,
Yes.
Ms. Kendricks,
Yes.
Ms. Cortez.
Yes. Thank you. The amended agenda is approved. Lisa, are there any outstanding action items from previous meetings?
I have a couple of items. One, Dr. Davis wanted me to report that, to make sure that the action items from the May 10th board members are to share any questions related to the 0.0 monitoring report or the culturally responsive curriculum audit report heard on the May 10th to share with the board secretary, myself, to compile for Dr. Davis to cover in the future board workshops. During the workshop, the board and the administration will discuss the best way to share the responses with the public. And then Ms. Ford, in addition, she requested that a narrative be shared for each chart from the consultant, Dr. Kirkland, that explains or provides a narrative explanation, rationale for what the data outlined in each of the hidden curriculum charts at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This evening, we have a number of individuals who have indicated they wish to address the board. As we noted during the budget hearing as well, public comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. I will ask your indulgence just to make sure if we miss somebody, please catch our attention so that we have these covered. I'm going to invite Mike Hughes up to open public comment.
Figure I'd be first. But I just want to take this opportunity to thank the board and the board superintendents and the new board members who are on board, Ms. Curls and others. I come on behalf of Central High School to appeal to the board, if you will, and the leadership here for the students at Central High School who feel somewhat injured with respect to things that are going on there. I come to appeal based on some things that we know about, and there are hundreds of people who are looking at what's going on there. The removal of the ban, and you have as a priority, and I really feel challenged to come before you, Ms. Collier, when you're so new, because I want you to win. And I want you to continue to do the great things as a prior student of our school system. We've seen a revolving door of administrators for too long. And stability is something that we really need. So my heart is heavy as I come to appeal for Central to bring an issue, a challenge, but something that I want the whole board to understand you're accountable. The Urban Tech program has been told they only have 30 days, and they're actually moving out of the building. It's a project program that has been managed free of charge, doesn't impact your budget, and I've heard your budget issues. The band has been removed. And one of your key points is music from elementary to high. And it's astounding that a band, an asset, would be removed from a school. How the principal is able to do this is beyond my comprehension. And I'm just a boy off of Vine Street. I'm just a brother that came through the school district at Wendell Phillips and Lincoln Jr. I was one of the first students that entered Lincoln Jr. So I go back. And it really kind of agrees me that the football team would even be removed. I'm sure you were an athlete at one point in your life, and to understand how football, which has really inspired me to stay in school, to get good grades. And I know that these are things that are assets at Central High School. Miss Montgomery, and I was told not to mention names, so I apologize to everyone in the room. I mean not to offend anyone, but to tell the truth. I'm here to speak the truth to justice. And I'm agreed that the assets, music, football, band, are now being removed. There are people in this community who think that the charter school movement is trying to take over our district, and I'm aggrieved to hear that the budget flows through the charter schools. I'm just an old public servant, and I'm probably beyond my time. I got a few gray hairs, and I admit I'll be 80 next month. But I can't figure this one out, and I need y'all's help. I need you to review what the principal is suggesting at Central High School. You're on Facebook. You're being held accountable. And I sure appreciate you, Miss Lisa, for opening up the door. I came to appeal to the board to make a better decision. If you know what the principal is doing there, you need to know that he's removing some assets. The legacy of Central High School, although I didn't go to Central High School, as I said, I went to De La Salle High School, Catholic school.
Mr. Hughes, we appreciate your comments. I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
Well, I'm going to wrap up real quick because I hit my 4 points. And I'm only appealing to your hearts and asking you to look at what's going on at Central, because even though the room is not full of Central High School alums, I'm here to represent them, and there are hundreds of them from Chicago to California looking at what's going on in Kansas City, and they'll be looking at what you do.
We appreciate your comments, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Next, Alfred Winder. Sorry, I need my glasses. Alfred Winder, if you. Okay.
I may not use 3 minutes. My name is Al Winder. I'm the former associate superintendent of this very body. I served as associate superintendent for 9 years. I then went to Washington, D.C., where I was special master of transportation for Virginia, Maryland, D.C., and Delaware. I reside in the Kansas City community, and I have for the last 30 years, except for traveling back and forth to Washington. I appeal to the district in terms of your public engagement and your ability to sustain yourself with a debt service and what you inherited from previous boards and previous decisions. So I understand fully the charge you're facing, and I stand before you as your colleague. I believe that there are economic and workforce developments that are being considered, and I am working on with federal and state involving all of your high schools and all your middle schools in terms of workforce development from 15 years of age and up. So we're talking about not jobs, we're talking about careers. We're talking about broadband, which affects us all, and that industry is growing in leaps and bounds, as you're well aware, because it affects everything from transportation to you name it. Broadband is where we're headed. I presented a 5-year plan which involves all of your schools from middle to up. I would like to have time at some time when you're available to speak with you and your body in terms of the details. I know your time is valuable. I know that this is something that you've done and that we're at the end of the semester. Unfortunately, because I've been involved in community engagement as well, and involved with communities north, south, and east and west, as well as the intercity, that we have a bigger plan and we stop eating our children. And we provide them for their future. And when you talk about crime, there's one of your solutions. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wander. Next, we have Angela Flores.
Good evening, Dr. Collier and members of the school board. My name is Angela Flores, and I am the Director of School Services over at Mattie Rhodes Center. And as you're aware, we are involved with the Kansas City Public Schools with different partnerships for providing social, emotional services between 8 different schools. So I'm here tonight to provide the agency support for the proposed boundary changes impacting Longfellow Elementary. I would like the district, upon the acceptance of the new boundaries, consider administering the community outreach and seek input from the families that reside in the neighborhoods. So neighborhoods include south of 31st Street, such as Coleman Highlands, Westport, Roanoke, and South Plaza. I think this would be beneficial feedback to then be used in the future decisions related to facility usage, curriculum, and supportive services for Primitivo Garcia. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Flores. Next, we have Ms. Ina Montgomery.
Good evening, Dr. Collier, and can you guys hear me? And the rest of the board. I am here today because of your contract, your partnership agreement. I have questioned about how it is structured and how it's implemented. The last partnership agreement I had was in 2017 with Dr. Bedell. That's what I have on record with KCPS. So when the current principal said he needed to terminate my services or contract with the district, it's hard for me to understand how he's able to do that. The simple contract that partnership agreement that's on file was executed again by Dr. Bedell. There's no signature line for the current principal, so this is the only thing that's on file. So I'm trying to understand how a district agreement that's executed by a superintendent can be terminated by a building principal. So I would like to ask you guys to review your partnership agreement. I have brought good services to Central. I've taken kids on several field trips. I have done a lot of different efforts that Dr. Davis has even supported. I have also gotten funding for my drone program at Central by Monica Curl's company, Terracon. So the fact that I was asked to, that my contract would be terminated, I just don't see, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm asking you guys to have somebody legally look at it the way that it is executed, because I don't think that I agree with it. And again, I was never reviewed every year as I was supposed to. Again, this was executed in 2017, so what hurt the program was that when Dr. Bedell, who was fully supported, gave me 10 laptops. With those 10 laptops, I was able to serve, because I primarily serve KCPS schools in my after-school program. I am contracted with Link. With those laptops, I was able to do a lot of different activities. So when I came this year saying, oh, I need my laptops, because I had turned them in, they were kind of bad, and I asked for new laptops. They said, oh, we need a copy of your memo of understanding. That's when I found out that the one that I had submitted to the current principal had not been executed. And I was advised then in July, which is this one, of 22, that it would be executed, only to find out that it had never been executed. So I have not been able to do the types of services that I had been used to doing with KCPS students. I'm in up to 16 schools doing Link after-school programs. I've had an impact, and we're talking since 2019. I have been doing these services, so I'm in the process now. I have until June 30th to vacate the premises, which I plan to do. I have another new partnership that I'm looking forward to, but it just saddened me that with STEAM being a focus of yours, I know, Dr. Collier, that I'm no longer a part of KCPS. I was also, I believe, recognized in 2019 as one of the community partner champions. So again, if you could just look at your partnership agreement, there's no signature line for a building principal, and for them to be able to terminate, I feel, a district level contract, I feel, needs to be questioned and reviewed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Montgomery. Nicholas Collins, public comment? Okay. So, okay. Mr. Tom Love.
I want to start by thanking school board members for asking for Dr. Collier to respond to the kindergarten question I referred to last month. I have an email here from the attorney, one of the attorneys representing the school district, that stated July 13th, 2021. And in this email, the attorney is explaining that there were 98 children that started kindergarten as 4-year-olds. That was only allowed in Kansas City and St. Louis under a large urban metropolitan districts law. Cities over 300,000 population. And so all 98 of these children were placed into first grade. Under that law, they're required to complete kindergarten. But all 98 children, 100% were placed into first grade. So tonight, I'm going to ask the school board to consider making a policy that will require students to complete Missouri standards for kindergarten. We have a large percentage of students that speak a foreign language at home. I think it's 30%. If they had an additional year of kindergarten, if they needed it, that would be a dramatic improvement for them. I mean, a lot of help. And we have children that are enter kindergarten. 11 years ago, it was 40% entered kindergarten 11 months behind. We were attempting to graduate about 40% as 17-year-olds. There's developmental issues with boys. We're like 6 months developmentally younger than girls. Boys walk later than girls. All this. There's a high premature birth rate. And the kindergarten teachers know who's completed kindergarten standards and who haven't. So if you would place a policy that just simply says that the students shall complete Missouri standards for kindergarten. It's really simple. What about the funding? How much is it going to cost? I talked to the Assistant Commissioner of Education, Dr. Neal, or I emailed him, and he said he didn't see any reason why you can't do that. It's not something that's going to cost us. It's going to be funded by the state of Missouri. But the cost of not doing it has been really, really, really hard on these children. We have so many children. My first question when I started digging into what was going on in the Kansas City School District was how many children didn't complete first grade reading level and then were promoted to second. It was actually, I was told at the time, that all the children completed first grade at first grade reading level. Before they were promoted to second, they didn't have social promotion. Well, it turned out that 30% were at kindergarten level when they were placed into second grade. Kindergarten level. They should have been in kindergarten again that year. They weren't ready to start first grade. And you can fix that. You can close the gap, and it's going to be funded by the state. It's going to be amazing. We've got literacy labs now. We've got math labs we didn't have. We've got master's degree reading specialists. There's going to be a lot of improvement take place. And Dr. Collier, I think you can get it done. I appreciate any help you can offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Love. That's all we have signed up for public comment. Okay. Thank you to everyone for appearing. At this time, the chair recognizes Angie Lyle with the DAC report. Welcome for what I think is your last one, right?
It's in my report. Okay, thank you again for the opportunity to give this report tonight on behalf of the District Advisory Committee for Kansas City Public Schools. My name is Angie Lyle. I'm a proud parent of 2 Lincoln College Prep graduates for 2023, and this will be my last report as the DACX chair. We held our last DAC general meeting for the school year on May 3rd, and our end of the year election was conducted after the meeting. We're pleased to report that Steve Burton, our community representative for Southeast High School, and both Amanda Trout and Manuel Clark, both parents of Foreign Language Academy, will be returning to our board next year. And we'll be welcoming some fresh new faces to our executive board, including Brittany Foley, a parent from the outgoing Troost incoming Hale Cook School, Ashley Johnson, a parent from Southeast, Ibrahim Ramsey, a parent from AC Prep, and Brendan Thury, which I believe is a KCPS staff from Global Academy. We thank our outgoing board members, Dion Lewis, Omari Tatum, and Christian Barnett for their service to the DAC Executive Board. As for myself, I will remain as part of the DAC Communications Committee and the Legislative Committee, so you can't get rid of me. Along that note, I would invite anyone who has an interest in helping to improve their school experience to learn more about the District Advisory Committee. As one of the final things I would personally like to convey on behalf of the DAC is that we really do need to do better with our digital media and information to parents. The KCPS YouTube channel is an example of this. It has 1.38 thousand subscribers, yet the video that was used on the KCPS homepage to invite parents and community members to take part in the budget process currently only had about 42 views. And then we just found out from the report from the budget hearing that we only had about 398 people view that page. Only 91 people took the survey. That's clearly not nearly enough people to be weighing in on this budget. The video itself that's on the homepage is listed unlisted, so all of those folks on YouTube can't see it. It's not showing up there. It's only for people on the website who can see it. So that's why you don't have a lot of people who are seeing that video. The video itself assumes people know what those priorities include. Nowhere do we see the breakdown. You have some really great explanations. I don't see them at all in the video. So there's a lot of things that are missing. That same information that was given before that you gave us should be in that video. I personally emailed our contact on May 7th to ask if this video could be made public and if we could see a breakdown on what the priorities were to include, and we have not received any communication back. In that same email on May 7th, I asked when our DAC meeting would be published. Our DAC meeting was on May 3rd. And when the presentation notes would be added to the KCPS website. This information is important for us to have as part of our communications to the DAC general body. We give this information to the DAC delegates. They take it back to the schools. But as of today, May 24th, that information has still not been added to the KCPS website. Our DACX is concerned about these open-ended requests out to the support team that we're not receiving timely communication back. We understand that graduation has everyone quite busy, but some of these requests are very easy from our point of view. It seems like we're just being put at the bottom of the list. I really hope this isn't the type of interaction that our new board will encounter moving forward. It's one of the reasons that I personally will not be stepping down from the Communications Committee anytime soon. Other goals for our DACX moving forward are to establish a grant program for schools who are needing funding for extracurricular programs or field trips, and also to bring some civics-based programming for our KCPS students. We look forward to these goals being accomplished and supporting KCPS in achieving their priorities in the coming months. Thank you.
Ms. Lyle, thank you for your candor, and truly, congratulations on graduation. You have given a great deal to each of us here on the board, and I think on behalf of my colleagues, I just want to express our gratitude. Thank you. The chair recognizes Dr. Collier, who will introduce the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. And I would just echo what Board Chair Cortez said. Ms. Lyle, we appreciate your service and your leadership. At this time, I do have a few superintendent's announcements that I would like to share. So in this announcement segment, I will talk a little bit about the superintendent scholarship recipients, also comprehensive school status change, which we're super excited about, quick summer school update, and then also information around moving forward together committee meetings. So starting with the superintendent's scholarship recipients, the superintendent scholarship is for graduating seniors who have thrived academically while also facing extremely adverse conditions, making it difficult to pursue secondary education. This scholarship can be used for trade schools as well as traditional colleges and universities. The scholarship provides $1,000 directly to the recipients and then up to $5,000 for potential tuition needs. This year's superintendent scholarships were awarded to 17 KCPS graduates, representing each of our high schools at their respective graduations. Just a quick snapshot of some of the students that received the scholarships. We had 2 scholars who wished to become educators. We had 3 that are desiring to become engineers. There was also a young woman who wishes to become a pilot and another who will study architecture. We had also in the bunch, we had an incredibly talented artist who is on a full scholarship to KCAI this fall on a full scholarship. So we're excited about him as well. Excuse me, a law enforcement officer, and then 3 future healthcare workers. So that's a little bit about some of the students that received these scholarships. Our students expressed their determination to rise above hardships and to lift others in their community through their leadership, their academics, and service. Some of the students shared in their essays their own personal struggles around homelessness, around family challenges, family resettlement as refugees in our country. And despite those challenges, they were supported by staff, mentors, and their friends to continue their journey. I ask that our board members, staff, community join me in congratulating our scholars on their special distinction and commitment to their post-secondary goals. And we had wonderful graduations, by the way. And we're going to see a video on that in just a moment. Okay, the next exciting piece of news is Comprehensive Schools List Status Update. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education recently released the updated list of comprehensive schools. The comprehensive schools are those that are Title I schools that are performing in the bottom 5% of the state. Some of the also is high schools that have a 4-year graduation rate, less than 67% across 3 years, or were previously identified and failed to meet the criteria to exit the status. The most recent list shows that Central Middle School and Northeast High School were both removed from this list due to improved performance in these measures. So we want to commend those schools, those principals, those staff members, and those schools for the gains that they made. This is awesome. The next item, summer school. And we had a summer school presentation in the last board meeting, but just really quickly, we know it's right around the corner, starting June 5th. Our current enrollment is 4,753 students, so we did exceed our goal of 4,000. This week, communications to families, you should have received on May 22nd a friendly reminder. Then there'll also be 2 more friendly reminders, just reminding families that summer school will be starting on June 5th. Transportation information is also going out. Parents will receive bus stop information by postcard today through Friday. So some families may have already received this information. If you haven't, you should have gotten it by Friday. And then also field trips. We wanted to make sure we shared what the field trips will be for the summer so that families are aware of those and the dates for those. And also those field trips that are based on the service learning projects. And then also summer school graduation that will take place on July 6th at Manual CTE Center at 11 o'clock a.m. So it's a summer school update. And then finally, moving forward together, we've been talking a lot about it. We had our kickoff last month for the larger meeting. Now we will be moving into our smaller subcommittee meetings. Just want to reiterate that everyone's welcome to attend. The upcoming committee meetings you can see here on the screen will be this Thursday, May 25th, for the subcommittees of academic and student performance. economic development, and education landscape. So those are the three that will be meeting tomorrow evening from 6 to 7:30. If you're interested, we invite you to come out, and you can see where each of those meetings are located. And then the second round, or the second group of subcommittees, will be meeting on Tuesday, May 31st, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. And those committees are the General Obligation Bond Committee, Enrollment Marketing Committee, and our Safe Schools Committee. So if you have an interest in any of these committees, we invite you to come out. You can check out the QR code that's on the screen to sign up, to let us know that you intend to participate. Also, if you're interested in being a co-lead, please indicate that. We have already started formulating those surveys so that we can conduct elections or selection of those co-leads for our parents and our community members. But we want to make sure that everyone who's interested has an opportunity to be a part of that. Tuesday, May 30th. Okay, I'm sorry about that error there. That should be Tuesday, May 30th. And then these meetings they will be meeting again, as you can see, in June. June 20th, 6 to 7:30 p.m., and then Thursday, June 22nd, 6 to 7:30 p.m. So we invite you to come out to be a part of these really important conversations as we move forward together. So those are all of the announcements. At this time, we will have our video highlight, which will capture some of the high points from our graduations that took place last week. It was really exciting. Another person say, why give up when you're one step from success? And I thought that was a powerful question. And it's a question many of us need to ask ourselves more frequently, because many times the most challenging times in our lives, the most challenging moments, is when we're closest to the breakthrough. It's that time when you feel like throwing in the towel. That's when you're closest. You're closer than ever. It's always darkest before dawn. So even in life, as you face challenges, and I'm going to tell you, you're going to face more of them. This is not the end. I wish I could tell you that life is full of easy street. It's not. Life is full of challenges. But listen, you persevered, you overcame, you reached this goal, and guess what? If you did it before, you can do it again. If you did it before, you can do it again. You've already shown us, and you've shown yourself what you're capable of doing. Then I heard somebody say, I want to thank those who said we couldn't do it. She said they gave us the fire we needed. Sometimes you do have to thank those who are the naysayers, the haters, because they've been put in your path for a reason. Not to discourage you, not so that you will turn back, but that you will use that fire and show people what you're made of, what you can do. Let that inspire you. There in life, there will be people that will try to define you. They will try to tell you what you are capable of. Some people will try to put you in a box, but you already know the truth. You know who you are. You know what you're capable of. And stand on that truth. Stand in the power of who you are. And then I heard another person say, don't count yourself out. I thought that was really important, because sometimes we focus on what other people do. We focus on what other people say to us, how they discourage us, how they didn't believe in us. And that happens, it's true, but make sure you don't disqualify yourself. Don't tell yourself that you can't. Believe in yourself. And if there's a goal that you have set for yourself, map out what are the steps that I need to take to get there. Get close to some other people who have done it and ask them, what did you do? People are willing to help and to mentor you. If you're really serious about a goal, get Get close to some other people who have done what you want to do. And then you map your path out. Write it down. Write your vision. Make it plain. Put it down on paper. And then step by step, keep moving towards your goal with focus and precision. And you will get there.
As superintendent of schools, I certify that these seniors have met all the requirements set forth by the Kansas City Public Schools Board and the state of Missouri. By the power vested in me, I hereby declare the class of 2023 to be graduated.
Proposed budget presentation, and that will be led by Ms. Erin Thompson, Interim Chief Finance Officer.
Okay. Good evening, Board Chair Cortez, board members. On behalf of Dr. Collier and the administration, I am presenting the proposed budget for 23-24. Enrollment. Enrollment plays a big part of our budget. We use our enrollment projection for our staffing and our revenue. For 23-24, we're projecting K-12 enrollment of 13,426. This is about 123 additional students than the current year. This is our sheet we showed before. The main impact was to our preliminary assessed valuation, the increase of 19.66%. And as I stated before, we'll come back and visit this in September when we get our final assessed valuation, and we'll set the levy at that point. It is required by the state to set that by October 1st. The other main impactful on this sheet is federal, the ESSER funds. Those funds will end after next school year. This is our current tax levy. It's the 4.9599. This is showing us compared to surrounding districts what are just the tax levy. Then when you add a GO or debt service, the 4.9599 drops down. Where our money comes from. So tax levy, the tax allocation of property taxes is 84% of our budget. So this reflects that for next year, the 4.9599, we're proposing that we use a portion of that towards capital so we can start addressing some of our deferred maintenance. So our proposal for property taxes, the projection is $241,219,365. That's an increase of $36,343,565. Our Prop C, $21,357,807. A decrease of $468,409. That's based on FY23 attendance rate. Other local, $5,867,590. Our county, $6,180,878. The state, this is basically the transportation, $9,339,090. And federal, $4,109,542 for a total operating, this is our operating budget, this does not include our grants and child nutritional services, of $288,074,272. This is just a pie chart showing that our property taxes is the greater part of our revenue for the operating budget. For expenditures, we use a tier model for expenditures based on our equity model, which is the board policy 0.0 for equity. So for tiering, we use the test scores, the English language learners population, the SPED population, free and reduced lunch population, and the schools are tiered based on that. So the highest need schools, those tier 3 schools, have the smallest class sizes, as you can see, for K2, 17, 3, 4, 20, 5, 6, 22, and 7, 12, 28. So the tier 3 schools have the lowest class sizes to help us to have learning for small class sizes. The desirable for the state is the tier 1 schools, as you see, 25, 27, and 30, and 30. We also give additional staffing for those tier 3 schools. They get a full-time vice principal, a reading interventionist, and a math interventionist, the FACE position, and 2 building subs. The tier 3 schools get a 0.5 VP, the reading math interventionist, FACE, and 2 building subs. And tier 1, they get an academic interventionist, that's someone who could do math and reading, or they'll get an instructional coach. They do get the family and community engagement and the 2 building subs. This is just an example of our staffing model. When we meet with HR, human resources, school leadership, and budget, and the principals, this is the staffing sheet that we use to go through their budget. So they have input on their staff, they see what their allocations are, and we do the actual staffing with the sheet. Some of the major items that affected this budget this year were at the school sites. We, of course, did the raises, which was talked about as one of the superintendent's priority, but we also started moving some of those positions from ESSER over to the operating budget. It was 27. We moved 13 teachers and 14 VPs from ESSER over to the operating budget. Plus, we also increased the operating budget based on those class sizes. So there will be smaller class sizes. We increased it for teachers also. We also, for career technical education, formerly known as vocational ed, we increased the teachers by 8. And I have here that at Lincoln, 2 business teachers, Basel business and TV broadcasts, Central Middle career exploration, and manual criminal justice and education preparation. Those were the teachers for the career technical education. Security, of course, the superintendent went through the security. We want to increase our security system infrastructure and also have elementary patrol officers at the elementary schools. We want to continue the elementary music program. We started buying the instruments this year. So next year we'll have 6 band teachers and 6 orchestra teachers that will go out through the elementary schools to start that program. And also early childhood education. We added 2 classrooms next year, one at James and one at Wheatley, and we want them to be 100% free and reduced lunch. This is a survey that we showed before to show where the importance of the teacher salary, school safety, and the math and reading interventionists. This again is showing our priorities, how they tie back to the Blueprint 2030 strategic plan. Our proposed operating expenditures. This is just the operating budget excluding grants and child nutritional services. Our total salary budget proposed is the $133,376,433, which is 50% of the total operating budget. Employee benefits, $44,745,471. Then our purchase services, $45 million. Supplies and material, $18 million. Capital outlay, $16 million. Debt service, $8.2 million. For a total proposed budget for operating only, $266,634,907. This is just a pie chart showing you the percentage. About 67% of our operating budget is salaries and benefits. The comprehensive budget. This shows all funding sources. So our comprehensive revenue is the $369,966,788. That's the total revenue from operating, the $288,074,272 from the previous slide. Then we add for grants, $64,421,235, and child nutritional services, $17,471,282 for total revenue budget of $369,966,788. And again, our comprehensive expenditure budget. Salaries of $166,133,155. Our benefits of $57,118,816. Our purchase services, $60,771,423. Supplies and material, $29,596,298. Capital, $26,852,584, and debt service of $8.2 million, for a total proposed budget of $348,672,609. Some of our major FTE changes. As we said, we moved from ESSER 27 positions into the operating budget for next year. That was intentional because we know ESSER is ending in 25, so we started moving positions over to the operating budget. The other item on here, large item, is the Montessori training. This year we did a Montessori training program where we trained the teachers for Montessori. While those teachers were being trained for Montessori, we hired additional teachers to be in the classroom with the students. So for next year, that training ends, those Montessori teachers will go back into their classrooms, and the teachers that were in the classroom this year will go to other schools, other vacancies. So that's how we can reduce this 18. So for operating, the net increase was the 36.96, but you see we did go through and reduce vacant positions out of administration. And the grants, that's the ESSER, 57 out of ESSER, 30 of them were vacant. So we swept those vacant positions, and the same with Title I because they're grants. We have to do a final expenditure report to the state by September 30th. Once we do that report, we'll know what carryover we have. And then the schools will get that carryover, and then some of these positions will come back. You'll see this in Amendment 1 of the budget. Child nutritional services, they added 3. So the net reduction to FTs is 35.79. And this is a summary to let us know where our fund balance is. Our beginning fund balance is $88,790,169. We're projecting revenue of $242,159,194. Our expenditure projection is $241,694,090. I'm under general fund. We have a subsidy here for the Education Foundation, and then we do our state adequacy transfer over to capital of $6,876,224 for ending fund balance projection of $82,233,864, which is 34%. So that's a healthy fund balance. If we add in our grants, which is restricted, capital is restricted. Once you move into the capital fund, we only can use that for capital items. You can't go back over to the general fund. So all capital items stay in the capital, so we consider that restricted. Child nutritional services, they usually budget what they use. They have a reserve level of $4.6 million, $4,640,967. So our total ending fund balance is $145,356,766. So if you add all your budget up, up really at about 41%. So we do have a very healthy fund balance. And again, our timelines. Our presentation tonight, the second budget workshop, tentative for June 6th. The final budget vote for the board on June 28th. We also, this is the final for this fiscal year, but in September, we'll start, July is our start of our new fiscal year. So in September, we'll have on our chart the levy. We have to have that levy tax public hearing on the tax levy, and at that point in time, if we have to do any adjustments to the budget, we'll have that in Amendment 1 of the budget. So the budget is at this point in time. And so, of course, when we start the new school year, we have, we'll find out if more kids come, less, we do adjustments, reorganization at the school to make sure the schools have proper staffing. And that'll be a part of Amendment 1 also of the budget. Any questions?
Ms. Thompson, thank you very much for the more detailed presentation, and thank you for the time that you spent in the budget workshop as well with the board. I'm going to start on my left and ask board members if they have any questions. Mr. Jackaway.
Not at this time.
Ms. Kendricks.
Not at this time.
Ms. Ford.
I don't know if you can answer this, but it's just a quick question. Thinking about how you start preparing this budget cycle, hearing feedback from the principals and things like that, and maybe even thinking about feedback that we heard this time last year in hearings. Is there anything that comes to mind to you of feedback and ideas, suggestions that we heard that we were able to incorporate into the budget for this year, proposed?
One of the items that I think we just talked about earlier was the community engagement.
Yeah.
We want to continue to try to give those schools the $5,000 so they can do community engagement at their own schools. So that was one of the inputs that we got from the community. Also, the bilingual, I know that we're working on trying to get some foreign exchange for high-level math and science teachers coming from different countries. So we're working on that also because that was something that really was requested. 18, he says, 18.
I just add to that. I just want to add to the overall process. I would say the engagement with the different groups that we met with. That was a new thing. We had not done that in the past, and we kind of heard that was something that the people would like to have, and I think board members even expressed that. And so we were able to incorporate that this year, and we do plan to continue and try to do a better job of getting more folks out. And thank you for the information you shared, Ms. Lyle, around that video, because I didn't know that. I don't know who else would have known, but just doing better about making sure that in the ways that we are trying to reach our families and people, that we actually are successful at doing that. So,
Ms. Ford, any other questions? Ms. Buckner.
Yes, I am just really interested in Balancing Act. I know that's something that we use to gather feedback. And so I'm wondering like how we got to these particular choices that parents or community members choose from. I know that I'm just wondering if we gather raw data, do we go through listening sessions, like just for the public and just to refresh our memories on how we get to these choices on Balancing Act.
We selected the superintendent budget priorities of those choices for the Balancing Act. That's what those 8 priorities, we use those as the Balancing Act questions. But there were additional questions that communications came up with to get input through Balancing Act. They had them prioritize those to wait and see which ones were most important to the stakeholders in each of the groups and with the families and DAC. I can't Can you remember any other?
I was just gonna, I think you're asking, how did we come up with those 8? Like, where did those come from? And so I would say, for those, some of them are, as we stated earlier, are tied to our Blueprint 2030 academic goals. And so moving forward with those, and we got feedback, as we were doing engagements over the year, what people's thoughts were on some of those items. And so we wanted to make sure that we were supporting ourselves around the goals for strategic plan, and also the 5 big rocks around the literacy, the math, some of those positions that are there, the safety work that we're doing. That's in response to just, I think, our need, what we are seeing as a need, but also feedback that we got from families, because there were quite a few families in my interactions with parents that were asking about more support for our elementary age students. And so I think it's a combination of feedback and engagement that helped lead us to those 8 priorities that were selected. But I think we recognize that we could value some of these things, and perhaps there are other things that our community is saying is important, which is why we then included on the survey an opportunity for them to tell us, is there something we've missed? And also tell us, how do you value these items? Are these important to you as well? So that was something the Balancing Act helped us to be able, that information we were able to ascertain through that. I would like if we had more people to respond, because then we would have a better sense of just our overall community, what their thoughts are on those priorities and other things. So I think we need to just continue to engage to be sure we're hearing from our full community on those.
Thank you. When we get to tools like Balancing Act, one thing that I always have an eye on is like the choices that we've put in front of people, and we tell them to rank them. There's always an outlier that we don't. There's issues or comments that we miss, and so thank you for naming that there is an opportunity for them to voice that. And then I'm also interested in how we collect that year after year. Are there things that we just miss year after year and that don't fall into the priority? So I think that's something we should keep an eye on, and something that we should communicate with the community about, like, hey, we missed this again, and this is why. So it's just something to think about.
Thank you, Ms. Excuse me, Ms. Buckner. Ms. Curls.
Thanks. I kind of have some of the same concern that Board Member Buckner mentioned, and I guess I was also as a consideration, as we maybe a method to use is similar to what the city uses when they kind of do their budget road show, where they go into each of the districts, each of the council districts, and have a budget presentation and get the community feedback. I would think maybe that's something we can maybe entertain, maybe not this, in the future, as a way of soliciting that community input. Because one, I think that's a format they're already kind of used to. Because the city's been consistent with that. I think it also helps to meet people where they are, because for people who maybe aren't that comfortable with technology and filling out those kind of surveys and things like that, that might be kind of just, and it also allows us to go out in the community, into our schools and present that information in a place where that actually is going to feel the impact of those budgets. So just a suggestion for future.
Thank you, Ms. Curls. I have a couple of questions, one of which is actually for Mr. Rand. So we started the presentation with a projection chart on enrollment. And I think one of my questions, you've probably heard it before in preceding years, is talk to us about kind of the historical accuracy of the projection versus enrollment. I guess September count, and just kind of, because I know you've educated me on that before, so I think it's useful.
Yes, in general terms, as far as the overall district totals, it's been pretty spot on. Anytime you're trying to project individual schools, that's always a little bit more of a challenge, but historically they have been fairly accurate, and we can pull multiple years of projected versus actual to show that for you in a Friday packet.
That would be great, because I think it's instructive about kind of creating the brackets and then understanding that the details get filled in as we get closer to school opening, but that aggregate number stays relatively.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep.
I think one of the things that I would encourage the administration, as we continue sharing out the budget, is kind of couple of key themes that I see in your presentation. One is this budget is really about investing in our people, right? Even with a FTE reduction of 36 people, we're looking at significant increases in compensation and benefits because the decision was made, I think, at the leadership level that's where that ought to be one of our priorities. And so I think we shouldn't be shy about sharing that with our community. The second piece, and I'm going to pick up on I think on slide 42, it shows some of the changes year over year. And I think it's easy in the day-to-day universe to see the challenges, the real challenges that our families and our teachers and our staff face. One of the ones that I know we've heard about in the district, but we've also heard about in the much far beyond our boundaries, is transportation. And I think we need to, not be shy about highlighting to our families that we are using kind of a multi-layer approach to try to address the transportation puzzle. That we've got a broad transportation strategy in place, but that this budget, we're not just increasing the number of drivers, we're actually creating a whole second layer of transportation kind of recovery, so that when we have drivers who call in or we have issues on routes, we have kind of a quick response crew. And that's something that we've got to figure out how to communicate early and often, so folks know that we're hearing that challenge among many, and coming up with some creative solutions. So don't be shy about sharing that. I think when it just sits in a line in the middle of a slide, it gets lost.
And we're purchasing 10 more minibuses, and we'll be up to 25 minibuses to help us with the sweep. Yes.
And hiring 10 of our own drivers so that when we're notified that drivers aren't coming in, that we have some folks that we can send out to help us, because transportation has been a challenge here in KCPS, but it really is everywhere. And so this is, thank you for pointing that out, by the way, Ms. Cortez, because I do think this is important that our community and families know that we are trying to do some things to improve service in this area, because we know that we've heard from you. We know how challenging it's been for you all experiencing this shortage. And so we do want to be responsive in the best way that we can, to make sure that we minimize that negative impact that you all have experienced this year. So we are excited about what this will look like next year with this additional support in place.
Yes. And I do know we had 26 applicants, and we did interviews this week for the bus drivers.
Terrific, thank you. And thank you to my colleagues for questions. Oh, Ms. Kendricks has a question.
I wanted to save my question because I have a tendency to get on my soapbox, and I wanted everybody to be able to speak about budget before I did that. So first, I wanted to thank you all for giving that engagement information about how many people participated, how many people looked at it, all of that. Even though we didn't get the engagement we wanted, I think it's important for us to put that out there, because this is not just a district thing, this is a community thing. And I think it says something about, as community members, our level of engagement as well as the district. We both can do some work, so thank you for that. One of the things I wanted to know, did we have an opportunity to go to the SACs or the parent leadership organizations at our schools to be able to give some information about the budget and get some feedback there?
So most of the SAC is done through Title I office. They provide that information to us after they've had their meeting with the SAC and principal, and they turn in their Title I budget, and that's how we get that information. We did not go to their individual meetings. We went to the DAC meeting.
Sorry. Did we give any kind of directive to principals to actually do that survey during the SAC meetings? Because I attended a few and I didn't see the budget presentation given, nor did I see them doing that survey type thing. So did we give any directives for that to occur?
I don't know that. No, I don't think so.
So I would like, as we move forward, I know there's district and administrative policy regarding the need for us to have those parent leadership organizations that include teachers and community at the school level. I think for us to get the feedback that we need about our priorities and what it is we need to do, we really have to invest there, especially when we're saying move forward together. So like the next time we come, and I didn't want to push for it this time because I understand we have a timeline, but I'd really like to see us invest in that so that when you all are coming back to us with things where we were supposed to get feedback from our families, that it's easier for you and that we're able to get more feedback to make sure that it's actually representative.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Thompson, but don't go too far.
Okay.
At this time, the chair recognizes Board Treasurer Jamika Kendricks for the Board Treasurer's report.
All right. So my report is very similar to the very last report that I did. It doesn't change a whole lot. All right, so when we look at this currently, again, because of the tax revenue that we received in December, it appears we have a surplus because our revenues are greater than our expenses. As of March 30th, oh no, that's the wrong one. Am I doing the right? Okay, as of March 31st, see,
April.
I felt like I had the one with the wrong notes. Hold on. Ms. Kendricks messed up her budget presentation. I thought I was ready. I don't see it on here. Oh. Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? Yes, so I can see my notes. Sorry, I have my notes written down, but I have the old presentation pulled up. All right. So as of April 30th, 2023, we're expected to have 83% of the budget to be spent covering the cost of running our schools. But currently, we've only spent 68% of our overall budget, including $19.5 million that has been set aside for spending required by law or contract. All right. Our local income makes up more than half of our budget, as Ms. Thompson had presented in her budget presentation, and it mainly comes from our property tax dollars that are distributed in December. And again, we expect to collect county income in June for fines and in August for stock insurance. As for our state income, as what Ms. Thompson talked about earlier, our basic school funding formula income gets redirected to charter schools. It doesn't come to us per state statute. And then year-to-date, collection is mainly due to transportation revenue that DESE will fully fund in FY23 for the FY23 transportation formula and early childhood special education reimbursement and charter school sponsor fees. Our federal income is our second largest source of income, and it appears to be down because we have $20 million that has been set aside for HVAC and air quality capital projects that we expect to have contracted this fiscal year. Here you can see that most of our budget, about $237 million, comes from local property tax, $102 million comes from federal funding, and $21 million from state and county combined. And as we've said a number of times before, most of our money is spent on people. Salaries and benefits are our largest portion, and it's down because of the number of unfilled positions that we still have remaining. The money set aside for capital projects, one of the smaller parts of our expense budget, is also significantly under budget because of that $20 million in the ESSER, or elementary and secondary school emergency relief fund dollars that we set aside for HVAC and air quality projects that we expect again to contract this fiscal year. And once again, you can see that most of our dollars are spent on people, about $67 million, $31.5 million on supplies and materials, $34 million set aside for capital projects, and $8 million on debt service payments. Here is the slide where you can see how we have our money distributed and how we kind of invested in order to make sure that we're able to make payroll every month. So our payroll is about $5 million. And as you can see for those purchase dates, many of those securities that we have were purchased in January right after we received our December funds. On this last slide, there's not a whole lot to talk about. Go back, because there is one thing I wanted to say. So as I'm learning, I try to teach people. So this is my first time being treasurer for a school system. And the first thing I saw on this slide when I first saw it was that overnight repo. And I was like, what is that? What are we having repoed overnight? So I want to make sure that I explain that to people who might be interested in a little bit more of this budget. So the overnight repo is kind of what the banks do because we have more money than would be insured by FDIC, which is what most of us get. And so what happens is the bank invests those into securities for us, and we purchase them back the next day so that our money stays safe and we still have funds to cover everything. So that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Kendrick.
And thank you, Ms. Thompson, for covering for me. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ms. Kendricks. The only note that I have in the board chair report is thank you to everybody for getting me their moving forward together subcommittee interests. I think everybody's interests were diffuse enough that everybody's going to basically be able to do something that they indicated an interest in. I'll get those out by email so that we can get those assignments going and get the dates on our calendar. So thank you for that response. Ad hoc committee report. I know that there's no finance committee report because we spent a little bit of time on finance and budget tonight. So I vamped enough. Ms. Kendricks, government relations? No report tonight. We'll get that updated. I guess we can share that things are both very exciting and not moving forward a lot in Jeff City at the end of this session. So with that, the chair recognizes Superintendent Dr. Collier as we begin regular business items.
Okay, this evening we have 10 items. The first of those items, business items, is a KCPS new school boundaries for Truce and Longfellow schools. The administration recommends approval to implement the new neighborhood school boundaries due to Longfellow and Truce Elementary Schools closure at the end of this school year, which was a part of the Blueprint 2030 plan approved by the board on January 25th, 2023. And before we ask for approval, we do have a brief presentation to just share a little bit about the boundary changes and what that engagement looked like.
Good evening, Board and Dr. Collier. Just as a reminder for the Longfellow and Truce boundaries, once again, I'm showing you the map. The map has been shown several times, but I just want another visual so you're able to see the map, the current Truce boundary, and then next to it is the proposed Truce boundary, and that's the same for Longfellow. The Longfellow boundary is currently on your if you're looking at the screen, it is on your left, and then the proposed is on your right, which would be a merger with Garcia. We went through a period of engagement, approximately 51 days. We started March 30th through May 19th. We had a variety of engagement opportunities that we were able to provide to our community, and we focused on those impacted. So it wasn't district-wide engagement. It was focused on those communities that would be impacted by the boundaries. We not only included inviting parents, we invited neighborhood associations. We sent invitations out to them, those that are in the community to participate. So we had an online boundary survey. We posted that on our website, as well as sent information through our social media, encourage participation. We also sent through our school messenger service that allows us to send information to all the families in particular schools. And so those targeted school areas that were impacted, we sent messages to them to encourage them to come out and participate. However, if they could not engage in one of the in-person meetings, they were encouraged to go ahead and complete the survey. So we provided information, background information to them in order for them to complete the survey. So with our engagement meetings, we did have 5 engagement meetings between April 4th and May 3rd. That included our Hispanic Advisory Council, our SAC meetings at Longfellow, and SAC meetings at Troost, as well as our SDAC, and that's our student DAC, and then our DAC meeting at the BOE. We were trying to get a variety of information. However, with all of that engagement, I will say that our response rate was very low as far as full completion of the survey. So that was concerning to us, but we also recognize that for our Troost and Longfellow families, they had already selected their schools for next year. So those families, it was a commitment to the district that upon the decision around their closure of the schools, that we would give those families an opportunity to choose their schools for next year. So by the date of our starting to engage, they had already selected their schools. So we're proposing that potentially the boundary change may not be as an impact to them. I won't say that they weren't interested, but they had already selected their schools for next year, and that was one of the things that they held as a priority. So at this time, we also know this time of the year is somewhat of a struggle in order to engage. But we did, for the most part, when we received our data and we looked at our data as far as being able to respond, we did find that in both surveys, you will see the strongly support and the support. That was where the majority of the completion of the surveys, that's where they ranked. Very few were in opposition, and then, of course, we saw some in the neutral range. Both survey results are on the screen in front of you for both Troost and Longfellow. The challenges that we did encounter when we had questions that came from the community, the questions centered around what happens, especially for Longfellow, because the Garcia boundary will grow to be so long. There were questions around what happens if those families who are in the southernmost part of the Longfellow boundary, if they find themselves closer to another elementary school, would they need to go to Garcia because of the travel distance? So that was some of the feedback we did receive. With the district, we do have an inter-district transfer process, so we said we would address those on a case-by-case basis because we also know that sometimes families may say, we have children in another school or another part. But for the most part, that was the concern that came up. Another question came up around the middle school feeder pattern. So for this proposed boundary, we did not recommend changing the middle school feeder patterns as they currently are. So currently, Longfellow feeds into Central Middle, which goes into Central High. Garcia feeds into Northeast Middle and then goes into either Northeast High School or East High School. So we did not propose changing the boundaries just because, one, we've given a lot of our schools a challenge to increase their enrollment. So we hated to interrupt one of the feeder patterns that automatically impacts schools going to either Central High or, like I said, Northeast High or East. So those won't change. Also, we know that these are temporary. So as the district moves forward, we know that the district is proposing looking at a bond and potentially building schools. So that may impact boundaries again. So we wanted to impact as few students as possible at this time. As we know in the future, we will be addressing this again. So thank you.
Do I have any questions from board members? I'll start on my right. Ms. Curls?
No, thank you.
Ms. Buckner? Ms. Ford? Ms. Kendricks? Mr. Jackaway?
Yeah, I'm curious on both of these. We see some strong opposition. I was curious if we got any feedback on what some of that underlying tension was related to, if it had to do with shifting neighborhoods, if there was a race or cultural element that came into play there, if we were able to capture even more kind of the deeper piece underlying that.
I can say from the comments that were placed in the surveys, nothing was related to cultural at all. The comments that we did receive were the ones around the feeder pattern, what would happen with the students. Some that were opposed to the students, breaking up the students. It was especially the Longfellow Garcia students. Why couldn't they all just go to Northeast Middle? So those were comments that we got actually in the written section of the comments. However, but one of the things I did notice is that we did not receive any concrete suggestions. And typically what we do is we ask, if you're opposed, what do you suppose, or what do you suggest to us that we do? And we really didn't receive any concrete suggestions. Although we may have, someone may have selected something on the survey, there weren't details provided.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Holliday Scott.
Thank you.
For the presentation. So at this time, I would ask if one of my colleagues would like to make a motion to approve the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to implement the new school boundaries that were determined as a result of Blueprint 2030 approval related to the closure of Longfellow and Troost Elementary Schools.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the new neighborhood school boundaries. Is there any debate on this motion? Seeing no debate, Lisa?
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner? Ms. Curls?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Mr. Jackaway?
Yes.
Ms. Kendricks?
Yes.
And Ms. Cortez?
Yes. The motion passes. With that, Dr. Collier.
Okay, our second business item for the evening is Apple Incorporated. The administration recommends approval for the purchase of 500 Apple iPads in the amount of $262,975 for Foreign Language Academy for grades K through 5. These iPads will support FLA elementary students to sustain innovative teaching and learning, and also align with the Blueprint 2030 goal of creating STEAM programs in our elementary schools. FLA, just a bit of additional information, FLA was one of the schools that was later selected for the Verizon grant, but those funds will cover devices for grades 6 through 8. So we made a decision to cover the entire school and also cover the elementary. So that is the reason for this decision here for FLA in particular, in case that's a question why that school was chosen. They were selected for that Verizon grant, and the grant covers 6th through 8th grade iPads.
Thank you, Dr. Collier. At this time, we'd receive a motion to approve the recommendation of the superintendent of schools for the additional expenditure with Apple Inc. for 500 iPads and accessories for the elementary schools in the amount of $262,975.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It is moved and seconded to approve the additional expenditure with Apple Inc. Is there any debate on this motion? Seeing none, Lisa, please call the roll.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Curls?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Mr. Jackway?
Yes.
Ms. Kendricks?
Yes.
And Ms. Cortez?
Yes. The motion passes. Next item.
Okay, our third item is GRE Electric, which is Global Rock Enterprises. The administration recommends approval of the contract with GRE Electric to upgrade electrical, plumbing, and duct replacement and repairs at Hellcook Elementary School and Manual Career and Technical Center. These services are necessary for mechanical to run appropriately within the HVAC system. The not-to-exceed contract amount is $556,000, and this is 100% MBE-WBE participation.
Thank you, Dr. Collier. At this time, do we have a motion to approve the electrical plumbing upgrades and duct replacement and repairs at Hale Cook and Manual Tech with GRE Electric?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any debate on this motion? Seeing none, Lisa, please call the roll.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Curls?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Mr. Jackaway,
Yes.
Ms. Kendricks,
Yes.
and Ms. Cortez.
Yes. Motion passes.
Okay, our fourth business item of the evening is Discovery Education. The administration recommends approval of the renewal of the agreement in the amount of $946,529.50. Discovery Education will provide science tech books for elementary and secondary schools and professional development for teachers. The virtual learning package for technology resources will help teachers improve achievement with the easy-to-use tools that they need.
Thank you, Dr. Collier. At this time, do we have a motion to approve the renewal of the Discovery Education Agreement, provide science tech books for elementary, middle, and high schools, in addition to professional development for teachers?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any debate on this motion? Hearing none. Lisa, please call the roll.
Ms. Buckner,
Yes.
Ms. Curls,
Yes.
Ms. Ford,
Yes.
Mr. Jackaway,
Yes.
Ms. Kendricks,
Yes.
and Ms. Cortez.
Yes, motion passes.
All right, our fifth item for the evening is Greater Kansas City Link Incorporated and KCPS Caring Communities. The administration recommends approval of the agreement with Greater KC Link to provide affordable and accessible before and after school care and enrichment programs at all elementary schools during regular school year and summer school. The total contract amount is $1,030,530. KCPS will fund $450,000 for the regular school year and contribute $450,000 in-kind services building use. The summer school cost is $130,530.
Thank you, Dr. Collier. At this time, is there a motion to approve the Link funding agreement with Greater Kansas City Link, Inc. through the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any debate on this motion? Hearing none. Lisa, please call the roll.
Ms. Buckner,
Yes.
Ms. Curls,
Yes.
Ms. Ford,
Yes.
Mr. Jackaway,
Yes.
Ms. Kendricks,
Yes.
and Ms. Cortez.
Yes, the motion passes. Dr. Collier?
Okay, the sixth item, Centegix. The administration recommends approval of the agreement to provide safety solutions that empower staff to request help instantly in any kind of emergency. Centegix designed a safety solution that routes requests for help to key personnel instantly. Crisis Alert provides clear and critical information to all impacted personnel, ensuring that staff feels ready to respond to any situation. Centegix Crisis Alert will provide KCPS with setup, training, maintenance, and distribution of one badge for each staff member. Every faculty and staff member in each KCPS building will have a badge they can activate in the case of an emergency. The 3-year contract amount is $1,084,100.
Thank you, Dr. Collier. At this time, do we have a motion for approval of the agreement between KCPS and Centegix?
So moved.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any debate on this motion? Hearing none. Lisa, please call the roll.
Ms. Buckner,
Yes.
Ms. Curls,
Yes.
Ms. Ford,
Yes.
Mr. Jackaway,
Yes.
Ms. Kendricks,
Yes.
and Ms. Cortez.
Yes, the motion passes.
And I should have said it, but I just wanted to just note that this is an additional layer around safety in our schools for staff and students. So we are looking forward to the implementation of this next school year.
Thank you.
Our seventh item, SGI. The administration recommends approval of the agreement with SGI for HVAC equipment and replacement at African Centered and Gladstone Elementary Schools. The not-to-exceed contract amount is $1,159,235, and there is a 6.9% MBE participation rate for this particular item.
Thank you, Dr. Collier. At this time, do we have a motion for approval of HVAC equipment and replacements at Ace Lower and Gladstone with SGI in the amount of $1,159,235?
So moved.
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any debate on this motion? Hearing none. Lisa, please call the roll.
Ms. Curls,
Yes.
Ms. Ford,
Yes.
Mr. Jackaway,
Yes.
Ms. Kendricks,
Yes.
and Ms. Cortez.
Yes. The motion passes. Dr. Collier?
All right, our eighth business item for the evening is McCown Gordon Construction LLC. The administration recommends approval of the agreement with McCown Gordon Construction for retro commissioning services of KCPS HVAC systems district-wide. Retro commissioning is particularly helpful for older buildings that have been in use for a long time. Retro commissioning can identify opportunities to reduce energy use, save costs, and also identify defective parts or system settings. The not-to-exceed contract amount is $1,203,197.
Thank you, Dr. Collier.
Oh, and there is a zero MBE-WBE participation rate. In this case, there was only one bidder.
Thank you, Dr. Collier. At this time, do we have a motion for retro commissioning services district-wide with McCown Gordon?
So moved.
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any debate on the motion? Hearing none, Lisa, please call the roll.
Ms. Buckner,
Yes.
Ms. Curls,
Yes.
Ms. Ford,
Yes.
Mr. Jackaway,
Yes.
Ms. Kendricks,
Yes.
and Ms. Cortez.
Yes. The motion passes. Dr. Collier?
Okay, our ninth business item for the evening is Control Service Company. The administration recommends approval of the agreement with Control Service Company for the HVAC automation controls upgrade at Manual Career and Technical and Anderson Success Academy. Manual Tech has no automatic controls at all and is still manually adjusted at the site for heat and air conditioning. Over the years, the district facilities team has slowly converted, as funds have allowed, over to one common automated control system, which is called Automated Logic. Automated Logic is an effective and easier system to work with other systems. At the present time, a little over 60% of the district control systems have been switched over to Automated Logic. With the approval of this contract, we will take another large step towards one system of controls for the district. No bids were issued, as Control Service Company, CSC, is the sole source provider for automation controls within the area. The not-to-exceed contract amount is $1,606,000. And that was a zero MBEWE participation rate, as it is sole source.
Thank you, Dr. Collier. At this time, would someone like to move to approve the automation controls upgrade at Manual Tech and Anderson Success Academy with Control Service Company?
So moved.
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any debate on the motion? Hearing none, Lisa, please call the roll.
Ms. Buckner,
Yes.
Ms. Curls,
Yes.
Ms. Ford,
Yes.
Mr. Jackaway,
Yes.
Ms. Kendricks,
Yes.
and Ms. Cortez.
Yes. The motion passes. Dr. Collier?
Okay, our final regular business item for the evening is our 2023 Summer Academy approval. The administration recommends approval of the 2023 summer school program to provide additional learning time and structured learning activities for students during the summer months. Summer school will be held at the following sites: Banneker, Garfield, Gladstone, Holiday, King, Phillips, Foreign Language Academy, Lincoln Middle School, Northeast High School, Manual Technical Center, and our International Welcome Center. Virtual education will be provided through the KCVA program. In-district summer school program will run from June 5th through June 29th. In addition, KCPS has summer school partnerships with Alvin Ailey, Boys and Girls Club of Kansas City, and Emmanuel Family and Child Development Center. Our summer school partners will run summer school programs from June 5th through August 4th. The total estimated 2023 summer school cost is $4,634,779.
Thank you, Dr. Collier. At this time, do we have a motion to approve the 2023 summer school program, the service agreements, and proposed budget in the amount of $4,634,779?
So moved.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any debate on this motion? I want to just make one note, which is there are some technical corrections to the contracts that were uploaded that need to happen. I think we've got some references that got mixed up in the process, so I'll talk with Ms. Long after while I'm signing contracts, see if we can get those corrected. So, with that, Lisa, please call the roll.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Curls?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Mr. Jackaway?
Yes.
Ms. Kendricks?
Yes.
And Ms. Cortez?
Yes, the motion passes. The remaining item this evening is the consent agenda. Do we have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Approval of the consent agenda has been moved and seconded. Lisa, please call the roll.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Curls?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Mr. Jackaway?
Yes.
Ms. Kendricks?
Yes.
And Ms. Cortez?
Yes, the consent agenda is approved. Dr. Collier, do you have any, are there any, I need to turn the page. Lisa, sorry. Lisa, is there a review of any task or action items from this evening?
At this point, I do not have any unless anyone has something that they'd like to add.
I do.
Okay.
I would like clarity on the decisions being made at Central High, namely the contract. And then just some clarity on summer school. I know we had some issues with supplies last year, so just kind of want to know if we're on track with ordering supplies and staffing. I know that we have a lot of kids coming. We want to know if we have, adequate staff.
I think we have the answers to those questions now, so if you all want to just come up quickly to talk about the school supplies and the staffing, we can go ahead and get that answered.
I'll take staffing. Yes, we are fully staffed. Today, HR team met with the summer school leadership team. We had, going into the week, 21 vacancies with an abundance of candidates in the pool. So today, they have completed that placement process, and then we'll send those notices out by the end of the week.
And the summer school supplies have been ordered and have been sent, so they will be distributed to the sites. They are ordered in the summer school principal's name, so they'll be sent there, ready to go. Those have all already been taken care of. The curriculum team did a fabulous job this year of laying all that out and having that ready to go. And so my admin and Dr. Davis's admin did an amazing job over the last week and a half of really pulling that together and getting those orders and really paring that down so we can get all of those out. So I'm very confident that we'll have those supplies and those will all be out to each of those buildings. In addition, then the summer school principals were able to send in supply orders that they would like specific to their sites that may be above and beyond what is called for in the curriculum. So just some additional things. And so those were also placed and will be distributed to those sites. So in the past, some of the issues have been around the supplies coming here centrally and then us having to distribute those. These supplies are being delivered directly to the buildings with those summer school principals' names. So we won't have those issues, barring any kind of supply issues in the atmosphere. But I think we're over those.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. This brings us to the conclusion of our agenda for this evening. So if there is no objection, the meeting will be adjourned. The next meeting will be on the road, June 14th at Central Middle School.